Hello, welcome back to Bare Conversations, a vulnerable space for real people and their real faith. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm really excited to be here. This is episode 2 of the Breaking Cycle season, and today we're going to kind of talk about a dilemma that is very common. It's the title of this episode is I Can't Say No, and we're going to kind of dive into something I saw anonymously online, and I'm going to try to answer and give some tips according to what I would tell the person if they were directly in front of me. If you have any personal experience on struggling to say no or any tips for this person on how to change, because I personally have this kind of experience, or how to basically handle their inability to say no in hard situations or whenever someone asks them for something, please feel free to join the conversation because your input is so valuable. Okay, about to get started. As you've seen already, today's episode is called I Can't Say No. And I feel like this is such a common issue that a lot of people deal with on a daily basis. The inability to basically say what we really mean. And I think it's very present in multiple cultures for different reasons. I'm a Nigerian and I've grown up in Europe a bit. So I've grown up in the UK and Ireland. And I think it's this inability to say no has shown up in different times of my life. I would say when I was still in school, it was because I basically did not want to offend anybody, and it was very much a culture of sometimes no was taken as an offense. People would take it very personal, and I quickly learned that to protect myself as well as to avoid being seen as someone who hurts another person, to always try to say yes or basically bend backwards to help people, or to not but basically bend backwards to give people whatever they asked of me, even if it was inconvenient. In Nigeria, this issue of struggling to say no actually came from a point of view of respect. So a lot of people would find it very disrespectful. So I'm kind of talking about elders more. If you did not sometimes bend to their whim, a lot of people kind of abuse this age difference, abuse the power dynamics that come with age and positions. So this could be from teachers to people in authority to family members to it was a theme I saw quite often amongst like Nigerian families as well as Nigerian people, where for me the I started to struggle to say no, specifically because I was protecting myself from the questioning that comes with not agreeing to do things. A lot of the times it wasn't really a request, it was more you were being told. So you were the agency to push back was taken away from you. And then since being in the UK, which I've kind of been for most of my, I would say, late teens to adult life, the issue of saying no now again was very similar to my time in Ireland, where the struggle to say no really came from feeling very vulnerable in this space. A lot of when I first moved here, my family was not here. And I was very keen to find community really quickly to establish and create my own space in this new country and in this new environments that I had not a lot of control over, as well as not a lot of understanding. So I built and protected myself quite quickly by learning to kind of go with the flow and try to assimilate in the best way possible. And that's how I learned to stop standing up for myself in certain situations and saying yes to almost anything that people suggested, even if it wasn't things that I was particularly interested in. It didn't really extend to harmful things. It only was around smaller things like, can you come and help me do this? Can you go pick something up? Do you want to come to this for drinks? Do you want to um let's split this? Things that I might have had some form of discomfort but didn't have a, I would say, immense impact on my life. I learned to say yes to more often than not, even if I didn't want to. So I shared all of those stories more to show you that sometimes saying no isn't really doesn't really come from a place of weakness. Sometimes that no, struggling to say no, and sometimes we reject that and allow ourselves to bend over backwards more often than we'd like, because we are struggling to assimilate. We are in a vulnerable position. And we've learned that to prioritize peace as well as to prioritize some form of protection for ourselves. So you're not weak that you struggle to say no. And I don't want you to ever kind of think that it is because I'm a pushover or anything like that. There could be an element of that to some extent, but realistically, some part of you is desiring protection or community or identity. And because that need has not been met in a way that has satisfied you, it might be manifesting in the fact that you do struggle to say no and stand up for yourself in the right places. So today's dilemma I will share is something I found on Reddit. I'm just going to read it as it's written. So the person asks, "How do I learn to say no? I have a really hard time saying no, and when I do, I feel like garbage. I hate making people sad or disappointed or angry. This has caused me some issues since a lot of times I get sucked into favors I never really wanted in the first place. I'm really tired of feeling taken advantage of, but I don't know where to start either. Any tips?" So if this person was in front of me, I would start by this is kind of how I respond. I would start by breaking it down into smaller elements. So one thing I clocked here that they've said is that they feel like garbage. Saying no impacts their self-esteem and creates a guilt just because they have kind of rejected to do something that someone has asked. And that is so common. That is something that I've also was also holding me back from saying no to people I loved, as well as even strangers. It's what had me sucked into things I didn't necessarily want to do because I just didn't like the guilt that came with telling people no and feeling like I have now made them either sad, disappointed, or even angry. And the way I've kind of learned to overcome this and the way I've been thinking about it a lot, and what helped me move forward is that I started to question that why is the needs of others so much more important than my safety, comfort, and my time. What they ask, even though every relationship, every situation does require a level of inconvenience, that is how relationships work. It does require sacrifice. It shouldn't take away from the fact that people are not entitled to every aspect of you when they desire it. You are also you are also in relationship with yourself, and prioritizing how you take care of yourself is just as important as how you take care of the people that you love, because you can't really give out love if there's really none inside you. And the fact that you consistently desire to help and to show up for other people says that there's a level of love that you have for yourself, and a level of love that you're holding within, that you're willing to share and give to other people, even at the expense of yourself. But that cannot continue. You cannot continuously prioritize everybody else against your safety and your mental health and your time. All of it is just as valuable. So I think one of the most important things to do first is to handle and deal with the fact that this saying no is already linked to your self-esteem. What lie about yourself are you believing that you have attached to saying no? I think sometimes it might also be linked to childhood trauma, when maybe when you were younger you refused to give someone something that was yours, and all of a sudden you were shunned by a lot of people. Maybe when you refused to or resisted helping a parent or the other, and then you were made to feel guilty, or you received the silent treatment. These are little things that might have shown up in your life that have caused you to then attach your service to your self-esteem. And I just want to come and tell you that that is not fair. It is not correct. You are valuable because you exist and because you are here. As I've said before, I'm a Christian, so I do believe in the value of life, because I believe that God has knitted and created everyone so intimately. So your value is not linked to your service, and you should not judge yourself based on your service, your ability to give service, and therefore condemn yourself when you're unable or you do not want to provide a service because it's an inconvenience. Okay, so now that we've kind of touched on the self esteem aspect, I'd also like to continue on where it says, "I hate making people sad, disappointed, or angry." Now, first of all, I'd like to point out that we are not responsible for the feelings that other people feel. We are responsible for our actions, and we're responsible for the consequences that also do come with our actions, but we are not responsible for how people feel. We cannot be over responsible for the emotions of other people when we are trying to just exist. I think a lot that is something that I've actually really struggled with personally, where I take on people's emotions even when the situation does not directly involve me. I carry the frustration, the sadness, the anger, the pain of other people way more than the owner sometimes, and I let it disturb me more than I'm supposed to. We really need to address that, because this our desires to always be available and always to be of service so that we do not offend and make people sad or disappointed or angry is us carrying more load than is required. If someone wants to react to your choices and like you being fair and prioritizing your self-care with anger, disappointment, or frustration, that is a choice they are making. You cannot necessarily change that, and you can also not like that they're reacting that way, but you cannot bear the burden of that reaction and therefore internalize that you have caused damage. Because people are going to feel however they want to feel by the way they also value you. I think the same way that you consider what they may be going through or what's their capacity when you do ask for favors is the same thing you can expect from other people to give you. If they don't meet you in that place, you're allowed to move on from there. You do not have to accept what people are not willing to give you back. I think it's so important that we hold the people in our lives, especially the people that claim they love us, so friendships, families, even relationships, hold these people accountable to what they have promised you. And if they fail, then we take that as information to decide what we do going forward. Because not every friend is for every single thing. I have learned over time that I have different friends for different things, and not to put unnecessary expectation on some people. There's some people I know that I can call at any time of day and they will pick up. There's some people I know that I can call. I may not be able to call at any time of day, but they are always ready to help me. Understanding who you have around you, and then also choosing the type of person you want to be, and taking the time to actually really analyze that, am I willing to be this type of person for every single person in my life, is super important, because not everyone is deserving of kindness that they haven't earned, they don't deserve, and they're not grateful for. Even as a Christian, I do believe that we are called to service, and we are called to treat people as we want to be treated. And but then that is still, God still requires us to use wisdom in those situations. He does not expect us to blindly move and continuously sacrifice ourselves in a way that does not honor him and does not give other people the opportunity to grow and move beyond where they've already chosen to be. We are not meant to be doormats for people. When it comes to feel like worrying about people's reactions, as well as carrying the guilt of hurting people or offending people, is something that we have to let go. They did not give us their remote control to their emotions, and we did not cause it directly. It is more the whatever they expected as well as whatever they desired, that is what has let them down, not necessarily us as individuals or as person. And even if it's an action isn't who you are entirely, so you cannot take on that now you are a disappointment and you are a cause for anger and you are a problem because someone has reacted to an action you've taken for your self-care and with kindness the wrong way. That is not your burden to carry. What have we talked about already? We've talked about how we need to be able to handle our self esteem correctly, that we know that we are also worth taking care of, and self love, and loving other people really starts from inside. Because even as the Bible says, it says, love other people as you love yourself. So there must be a level of love for yourself so that you can pour it out to other people. And then the second thing we've learned is that we cannot carry the burdens of other people as well as turn that into guilt and internalize it, because our actions have specifically caused anger or disappointment when all our action was telling someone no, that we are not available, or we do not have the time, or we do not have the capacity, especially when we are being genuine rather than we are specifically trying to hurt them. If our hearts are clean and we are coming from the right place, we cannot bear the burden of how other people react. And then the next part of this dilemma that's really caught my eye was how this then has caused a lot of issues where they're stuck into doing favors that are longer than they actually wanted to do in the first place. So this is very common with people that can't say no. They ended up agreeing to things that they never really thought about completely, or the person whoever asked them for this favor did not fully explain what was going to be required, as well as has added on way more. They somehow minimized it, and now you are stuck in a situation where you are more frustrated, and then you it starts to create resentment. According to what I read earlier, it says, I get sucked into long favors that I never really wanted to do in the first place, and I'm tired of feeling taken advantage of. So now resentment has started to set in, because we are upset that people are not valuing our time the same way we value their time, and we're upset that people are not considerate of us the same way we choose to be considerate, or even regardless of even how we act, we're just frustrated that someone is not valuing our time. But I want to pose this question. I'm going to pose this question very softly, and I want you to kind of take it on with an open mind, because this is something I've also asked myself. How can I expect people to value something that I don't value myself? So in my heart, I know I value my time, but when I move without boundaries, move without caution, and move without self love, I am telling someone that my time is not valuable to me and they can use it indispensably. When we start getting to a place where we feel taken advantage of, that is a sign that, oh, I care about my time. So I need to articulate that, because people are going to treat your things this almost the same way you treat it. And even if you do value your time and you've kind of moved with more kindness that was or was warranted for that situation, people will take advantage of it because they are willing to take as much as they can. I feel like all of us are very take by nature from when we were born. We were really just looking for whatever could satisfy our needs. And with that reality, we cannot then be over accessible in ways that harm us. Okay. God has not called us to that. And we've all seen that when we do live in that way, it tends to leave us with some level of resentment and frustration, because people are not valuing us or helping us or being there for us in the way that we couldn't be for ourselves. And I think it's so important to know that you have to be your biggest advocator. You really have to be your biggest advocator, because no one is going to stand up for you as often as and as much as you would like, and will understand the depth of your feelings as much as you would like, more than you. If you do not choose you every day, you're going to end up leaving yourself behind, and that is not what we desire, and that's not what we're going to do in 2026. Okay, we're not going to do that. So I think let's just kind of run through what we've already talked about. So not being able to say no sometimes shows up because there's a level of protection we're trying to provide ourselves, as well as we have been kind of conditioned by some life experiences that showed us that if we do say no, or we do reject, or we do stand up for ourselves, it tends to cause some form of friction or rejection, which we're trying to avoid. So that is very normal. It does not necessarily mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're a doormat. It just means that you've been given some form of information prior in your life, and that has now conditioned how you continuously react. Being able to identify it is what will help us be able to move forward. And then from reading the dilemma, and the tips that I think are super important, is that when we don't stand up for ourselves and when we don't redeem our time the correct way, we tend to feel taken advantage of. We tend to get frustrated with the people, and we tend to get worried because we're carrying the weight of other people's feelings, from the fact that we want to say no. We've carried guilt, which is not ideal. We need to personally choose and take time to work on our self esteem and value our time in the way that we desire other people to value it. We need to no longer like we need to prioritize self-care, because you cannot give what you do not have. You need to love your neighbor as yourself. So you need to love yourself so that you can pour into your neighbor. You've been given a level of capacity, and if you are at your limit, you are at your limit. It is irresponsible and it's unwise if you do not respect your body and respect yourself and respect your time correctly, so that you can show up in the world and give your best, just because we are scared and we carry fear from disappointment. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to say that it is just something you do at the click of a hand. I've been on this earth for what, over 20 years now, and I'm still learning every day. I still carry guilt when I say no. I still sometimes have to check with family or friends and say, is it okay that I said this? I don't know if it's a bad thing. Um so it's not going to happen overnight, and I don't want you to think that I'm insinuating that it's just a click of a finger and you can change it so quickly. No, but it's good to identify and to also remember what is the reality, so that when we are moving in these moments where maybe fight or flight mode is kicking in, we can make rational decisions that aid our lives and support us and our relationships, and not decisions that will create resentment down the line. Now that we've kind of talked through this a little bit, I'd really love to hear from you. Like, what has your experience with saying no? And have you kind of felt it's different for each culture? Have you felt that in different settings it might come up more than others? I think some common places is school, work, in the home. And I think it looks different for everyone. So the way I struggle to say no at work is not the same way I struggle to say no at home. At home, sometimes my struggle to say no is really centered around me feeling very responsible for the people in my life, for my family, and wanting to be supportive. I want to be that pillar that I believe that I've been called to be. But then God has had to show me, and my family has also had to tell me that it is really not for me to carry more than God has required. Identify what is fueling your lack of no in certain areas is also very important. And work, I think it's very similar, where my lack of being able to say no is very much fueled by I want to do a good job and I do not want someone to question my abilities. So that kind of links again to my self esteem, as well as my ambition to always like show up correctly and to always be seen as a certain level of worker. And sometimes that affects my ability to make good self care decisions. And I really don't want to be like that anymore. I've talked to some friends about it and I'm learning to be realistic with myself as well as with my employer, because there's no point moving in dishonesty all in the name of creating some impression that is true, but then I'm trying to skew it without, because saying no to certain things does not make me weaker. It does not make me less of a good worker. It does not mean I am inferior to anyone at all. It is okay that at certain points I don't want to do something and I do not have to do something. Obviously, if it's part of my job description, that's a whole different thing. But it's when I'm taking up extra tasks or supporting people to carry things that I cannot take, I should be able to communicate that without fear of condemnation or fear of punishment. Another place where saying no sometimes shows up and where we struggle can also be in our friendships. Our friendships and our relationships are platonic and romantic. Sometimes these relationships are so close to us and are so important for our hearts and development that we want to do all that we can to keep these people in our lives. I just want you to know that the people that are meant to be in your life will not leave because you said no to something that inconveniences you. They should, and I'm praying that they care about you enough that they also want you to be okay. So they will equally prioritize your well being more than what they have desired of you, more than what they ask of you. So I want us to kind of get this really straight. I don't want you to misunderstand me at all. I'm not talking about the inconveniences that come with relationships, so friendships, platonic and romantic. I'm not talking about those, because all relationships have a level of sacrifice. Because love is patient, it's kind, it does not keep a record of wrongs. All of this that we see in First Corinthians. I think it's really important that when it gets to a point where people are now taking advantage of you, that you are the point of call for every little thing. You are the point of call without regard for what you already have going on. So, like someone keeping you up, consistently keeping you up all night when they know you've got something important to do the next day. Another example is someone making you do everything but not showing any gratitude, not thanking you for anything, or you are the person that always pays for everything. The people that care about you and the people that love you genuinely will not put you in a position where you are consistently hurt, will not put you in a position that your life is deeply affected or damaged because of their actions. So I think it is very nuanced and we need to be careful when we analyze the situations. But when you get to a point where you're struggling to consistently say no, you're in a place where you're starting to build resentment and your self esteem is taking a hit and you're consistently feeling guilty, and that's why you can't stand up for yourself, is enough information to know that something is wrong and something needs to be done about it. It doesn't need to be done today, it doesn't need to be fixed tomorrow, it doesn't need to even be fixed by next week. But the fact that you've identified it means that it deserves some attention. And I really hope that some of the things we've talked about here and some introspection will get you to the place that you desire to be. You are valued, your time is valuable, and you deserve the love that you are willing to give out. If you have any personal experiences or any tips at all on how to be able to say no more in the right context, as well as to overcome being a people pleaser to some extent, please do share it. Share it in the comments, share it on email, share it in my feedback form. Anything would be good. And I'm really looking forward to having our next conversation. Speak soon. Bye.